What's it doing?
I can just tell I'm not like the moment.
Folks ready?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, I'm still good.
I was trying to get back before the clock struck.
I call this meeting to order. It is now 6 p.m. This is the October 25th, 2023 regular session of the Schertz Planning and Zoning Commission. Item number 1 was our call to order. Item number 2 was to seat our alternates. We have Ms. Craig joining us this evening. Item number 3 is hearing of residents. Anybody? No? No emails, no letters, nothing. All quiet, they say. All right. Item number 4 is our consent agenda. There are 2 items. Flip it over and make sure. I got 2 items. Item 4A are the minutes from the October 11th, 2023 regular meeting. Item B is PLFP 2023-0243. Consider and act upon a request for approval of a final plat of the STX Frio subdivision, an approximately 25.2 acre tract of land located approximately 900 feet northwest from the intersection of FM 2252 and FM 482, also known as Comal County Parcel ID 81088, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. Commissioners, there's no discussion on the consent agenda. Do we need to pull either of these items for discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Carbone. Do I have a second?
I second.
And a second from Commissioner Brown. There is no discussion, therefore I'll call for the vote. If you would please record your votes. All right, I see 6 votes recorded. If you'd publish that, please. That's 6 in favor, none opposed. That motion passes. All right, moving on to item 5, items for individual consideration. We have a single item on the agenda tonight, PLPP 2023-0248. Consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat for the Schertz Station subdivision, approximately 75 acres of land generally located to the southeast of the IH-35 and Cibolo Valley Drive intersection, parcel ID 68313, City of Schertz, Guadalupe County, Texas.
Good evening, Commissioners. PLPP 2023-0248, Schertz Station Subdivision Preliminary Plat. Amaris Gomez, Planner. So the subject property shown here is outlined in green and is located to the southeast of IH-35 and Cibolo Valley Drive intersection. The site is currently zoned as a Planned Development District PDD and is divided into 4 areas to include commercial, retail, and multifamily. The applicant is requesting to preliminary plat approximately 75 acres of land, establishing a total of 13 lots. So Area 1, the portion of the property along IH-35 Cibolo Valley Drive is made up of 9 lots. You can see here lots 1 through 9, and is proposed to develop as a commercial retail. Area 2, portion of the property located at the center of the 75 acres shown here is lot 10 and is proposed to develop as commercial retail as well. Area 3 consists of lots 11 and 13 and is proposed to develop as a multifamily. At this time, the applicant is proposing a total of 318 unit build-to-rent apartments, and that is, 11 units per acre. And lastly, Area 4, immediately adjacent to the intersection of Cibolo Valley Drive and Old Wiederstein, is identified as Lot 12 and proposed to develop as commercial. So the property is eligible for a maximum of 3 access points along the Interstate Highway 35 per TxDOT. The property is currently proposing 2 main entrances, as seen here, between lots 4 and 5 and between lots 6 and 7. So the 2 entrances from IH-35 will connect to a 50-foot public right-of-way within the property, and that is seen here. And also a public street extension is proposed from the intersection of Cibolo Valley Drive and Rips Chrysler Road, which is here. The proposed development will be serviced by the City of Schertz for water and sewer, Cibolo Creek Municipal Authority, CCMA for sewer, CPS, CenterPoint Energy, and AT&T. So once again, it is 75 acres. It is a planned development district to include multifamily and general business, and is going to be a total of 13 lots. The preliminary plat is consistent with the applicable requirements, ordinances, and regulations for the property. The preliminary plat has been reviewed with no objection by the Fire, Engineering, Public Works, and Planning Departments. Therefore, staff recommends approval of PLPP 2023-0248 Schertz Station Subdivision Preliminary Plat. And so just so you know, the plat is a total of 9 pages. If you'd like for me to show you each individually, I do have them.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Ms. Gomez, could you give us the overhead again? One more, the
This
the satellite-looking one, like the Google Maps one? The aerial? There we go.
I had to look real close, but in that, as you look at Evo, in that lower left corner, there is a driveway off of the Rips Chrysler. But at this point, that's just right-of-way? Is that correct?
That is being dedicated. It's this part right here. Oh, and also the applicant is here if y'all have questions for them as well.
But for the time being, that's just right-of-way. I assume that they'll construct that
And
as the multifamily goes in. I'm
Are you
causing
talking
it. I don't
about-
know how much further back I can get from this microphone, but I keep hearing that whine. Anyway.
Correct. So with the preliminary plat, they're proposing to dedicate the right-of-way. Closer.
I need to be closer, but then I'm so much, all right. Okay, hang on. I don't understand that, but that's what, okay. I'm sorry, Emily, go ahead.
You're good. So I was just saying that, yes, with the proposed preliminary plat, they are proposing to dedicate that right-of-way for the Rips Chrysler extension. And then with the multifamily piece, they are proposing to construct portions of it. Yes.
And the only other thing, of course, was I see where those 2 entrances come in off of 35 access, but once again, I'm wondering about connecting that to the Evo. You know, there's that stretch of pavement that runs down there. Are we going to address that with cross lot or?
Yes, so lots 1 through 9, here, all of this will be cross-lot, they will have cross-lot access.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can see, that looks like a driveway along their lot 4 and lot 3. You see what you really can't see it,
Yes, sir.
but where your cursor is, that's a driveway going up, okay. Yeah, every time I drive up there, I keep looking for progress. I guess you're getting close, huh? Okay. Anyone? Anybody else? Questions, comments? Got to make them now, because this is the stuff we're not going to get to see anymore. All right, I've got to figure out how to stay and
So
stay close to the mic. There we go.
It looks like the entrance next to Lot 7, between 6 and 7,
Yes, sir.
if I read that correctly, that's 845 feet from the intersection with Cibolo Valley.
Yes, sir, correct.
What?
No, I think
He's
that's,
shaking his head.
yeah, that's an elevation curve.
Or-
How far from,
No, yeah, here, these are the contour elevations, so
okay, how far from Cibolo Valley Drive is that going to be?
425 feet.
And those have been reviewed by TechStop for those two proposed locations on the 35.
Well, they're not always the smartest draw in the pack, but anyway. As far as, I contacted the school district and they were wishy-washy as always, but they still own that property to the east or south.
Yes, sir, correct.
And their answer was, it'll support any kind of school they want, from kinder to 12, so very definitive.
Yes, as an Evo customer, I'm excited about the extension of Rips Chrysler so that I can come back down to 399 without having to go north and turn around and come down the other side. So whenever you folks are ready, I'm ready, okay? Anybody else? All right, well, this is for our action this evening, and I will entertain a motion to either approve or deny PLPP 2023-0248.
I make a motion to approve PLPP 2023-0248.
All right, I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hector. If I have a second?
I second.
All the way at the end? All right, a second from Commissioner Craig. Do we have any further questions or comments, discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask you to record your votes. All right, I see 6 votes. Can you publish that? All right, 6 ayes, none opposed. That motion passes. Thank you. All right, item number 6 is a workshop and discussion that I asked for quite a while back, particularly for our newer members. I just wanted to go through. Now, I was going to do it from up here. Oh, there you go. Thank you. I guess you found a secure way to do that, huh, Sam? Thank you all for coming this evening. All right, those look good. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these tonight. I just we'll kind of skim through them, and there are some things that I think are important. First off, these are, to the best of my knowledge, the latest approved bylaws for the Planning and Zoning Commission. These were approved as resolution number 21R28 on the 6th of April 2021. I think if you just want to scroll down through there, you know, we all pretty much know about what our duties are And again, there's 7 of us and 2 alternates. Here's one, the commission shall hold elections for chair the first meeting in August of each year. So if you want to put that first meeting in your calendar. And again, you're familiar with our meetings. I've been on here since late 2016 and don't remember a special meeting. We've never established any subcommittees. And I hope somebody is keeping us in compliance with Texas law. Citizens' rights, this just talks about item number 3 on our agenda, hearing of residents, and it lays down the ground rules, the time limit. It asks you to be what's the word I'm looking for? Nice is not the right word, but yeah. And the remarks are supposed to be addressed to us as a group, not to any one particular commissioner. Let's see, I think we can skip down to section F, motions, meeting procedures. There's some here that I want to talk about. You also, if you go look at the what do they call it, rules of conduct? Anyway, if you go find the way the city council conducts their meetings, and it's pretty much an agreement. I think that's where we stole most of this from. But unless you're a parliamentarian, this is pretty dry stuff. There are 12 types of motions, meeting conduct motions, disposition motions, and main motions. There are some that you as individuals, and really what I hope you'll do is kind of read through here and familiarize yourselves with it. If you have any questions, you can call me or Emily or Sam. But these first ones are really how we conduct. In a point of privilege is an individual, and I can read you there. It's sometimes called a point of personal privilege. If you can't hear, you need a potty break, you can ask, And one of the things about a point of privilege is you can interrupt a speaker. If we're already talking about something, you don't have to wait. Richard, I see you flashing over here. What's up?
We can go back to number 4.
Which number 4, Mr. Brook?
Public hearing, number
Hearings.
4.
Okay.
This has come up a couple of times. It opens by saying, after being recognized by the presiding officer, interested persons or their authorized representatives may address the commission. Will we allow an authorized representative to stack up time of 3, 4, 5 individuals to get 15 minutes, 18 minutes?
Well,
It's happened before, and
it says, if you read it, that's really, I want to say me, but it's whoever happens to be the presiding officer, and I've made that mistake because I've seen the mayor do it, and sometimes, a couple times, I felt like doing it. But it says the presiding officer may establish procedures at a public hearing to limit the amount of time interested persons may speak, subject to the commission members' right to appeal, and we'll get to that. Okay. So basically, the way we read this is, yes, you're limited to 3 minutes. In the past, if a husband and wife, they're both sign up or in a public hearing, they're both entitled to 3 minutes. So if one of them wants to give their time to the other one, it still adds up to 6 minutes. Where I finally drew the line at one meeting was, we don't have a way to keep track of who has spoken, who's used their 3 minutes. And so you start having people in the audience raise their hand saying, I'm going to give him my time. Well, maybe they already spoke. But anyway, that's a long way of saying it's kind of up to the presiding officer how we do that, whether we want to allow people to combine time or not. So.
Is that something that could be determined up front? Meaning when they sign up, they identify that they're going to yield their time to their spouse or another?
No, well, I don't think so. Because, well, number one, as I said, I've done that a couple of times, and I've been burned is probably too strong a word, but I've regretted it at least once. So, if I'm the presiding officer, I don't know whether we'll continue to allow that or not. If you've got something to say, get up and say it. Does that help you at all?
Well, I mean, I did read the part about the presiding officer has some discretion here, but there's going to have to be, I mean, we have a secretary and we have a list of people to sign up. So there is kind of a way to keep track. I'm just wondering if, somebody could appoint a very good speaker or a professional representative, and 10 people could come in and sign the sheet and go, I want Jack to speak for me, and he's got 30 minutes. I mean, is that something that we would allow, as long as none of the other people that signed up to talk would stand up to talk? They get 3 minutes and that's it. So, the professional or whoever they appoint, they could speak for however long they want, as long as it's attached to a certain person.
Yes, and that's, I don't know that that's my discretion. I mean, it says, as you pointed out, they're authorized representatives. So if 10 of them say, Mr. Smith is our authorized representative, I don't know that I could deny that.
Mr. Allo, how often has this happened?
It's where you see it, John, is in the real controversial.
I remember one time in the last year.
Yeah, and it's, again, I keep saying I, but at times it could be Richard, or if neither of us are here, it could be you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when I say I really mean the presiding officer. Part of you wants to hear what the people have to say. And I don't know if you've ever tried to get up and make a point in 3 minutes. It's not easy. And so typically if they go to 3.5, 4, sometimes I'll let them go to 5 before I cut them off, because part of it, you want to hear what they have to say. And but when they keep ceding time to somebody that continues just to say what they've already said, it's a waste of everybody's time. But as long as they're making new points, again, I'm kind of torn, because it's their right to be heard, and we should hear what they have to say. So
It's come up in the past, and usually when it comes up, it's a room full of people and it's a controversial topic, and so things can easily get out of hand during those meetings. Regular meetings like tonight, it's not that big of a deal, but when the room is full and people are excited, whoever's chairing the meeting needs to be prepared for that And without having established procedures, there needs to be kind of a plan in the back of your mind that, on how you're going to handle it when it does occur.
So I have a suggestion. If we're going to cede time to someone else, you have to be related to them. That makes things easier, right? And so if you're not related to them, you can't cede your time. And it's easy as pie to put that in there. You can only cede times to individuals who you are related to, period.
Well, then you're stuck with trying to prove they're related
Yeah,
or
how are you
not,
gonna
right?
prove that?
So,
Who's going to come in here and lie that that's not their mother?
well,
I mean,
I mean, we
how
might
often
not
is...
think anyone will, but I'm just saying, just
I
from,
get it, I get
you
it, but
know,
if someone comes up and says, I'm going to cede my time to Mr. So-and-so, are you related to that individual? No, and unfortunately, you can't. They're not going to read this. We are.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I'm sorry.
I go
ahead.
back to the example of 10 residents wanting to cede their 3 minutes to one person to speak on behalf of. Yeah, kind of like that, right? What's the difference, right? You know, right? But they're looking for someone to articulate their point maybe better than they think they can. I mean, if they're using their time, they sign up, they're legal residents, and they're able to have their 3 minutes, and they want to cede it to someone else. That's why I was saying, if it's identified up front, they have an opportunity to sign up, you know. And I'm just looking at it from a standard operating procedure perspective, right? So that way, it's not left up to whoever the presiding officer might be that particular time, right? So if Mr. Outlaw doesn't agree with it, but Mr. Braun does, then now you have, you know, a lack of consistency, and it's based on an individual's perspective as opposed to something that's documented that can be followed by whosoever is willing and able to read.
Right. This is, this particular section deals with public hearings, and there's no requirement to sign up for public hearing. It's an open forum, and anyone in attendance is welcome to come forward and speak. So that's, you know, there really is no way. You know, I think as Commissioner Bro pointed out, you can try to anticipate, and I think I've tried to do that in at least one of the previous meetings where I tried to set the ground rules at the beginning and say no more than 15 minutes, or, you know, set something like that. I mean, ideally, you sit here and 50 people come up and say the same thing over and over.
Trying to emphasize that point.
So, Richard, you know, I think part of what you're suggesting is just to be aware that, you know, the easiest thing to do is just say no right up front, okay? That I'm not going to allow people to cede their time. So, how we handle the authorized representative, I don't know.
I think just talking about it and being aware of whoever's going to chair the meeting that this could occur is enough. I don't have any prepared
Okay.
amendments to number 4.
Yeah.
I do have a comment for number 5, though.
Written communications?
Yes, sir.
Sure, what is it?
Before we move on to number 5, is this something you'd maybe like us to run past legal to see if we should put something in there? Lisa, I don't know if you will agree, if you don't. To me, I feel like we should be consistent. Every meeting, we should either allow people to cede time or we shouldn't allow people to cede time.
Right.
We get zone change cases in here, and it might come before the Planning and Zoning Commission several times, and if one time you allow someone to cede time and then the next time you don't, it doesn't
Yes.
give off a...
That's why that's the comment I made was the easiest thing is just
It's
say
just not.
no.
I also feel like it's worth mentioning, I want to say in city council, they allow 3 minutes, but that's like final decision making. So I feel like for planning and zoning, we should be more open to them being able to speak. Like maybe 5 minutes or something, just giving it, never mind. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever cut somebody off right at, typically, as I said, the little light will come on, the red light comes on, says their time's up. I'll let them continue for a while. But at some point, I interrupt them and ask them, I I don't just make them sit down. I tend to ask them to wrap it up. It's your meeting, and I don't know, what's our record here? 11:30? I mean, we've seen 4.5 hour meetings, fortunately not frequently, but and most of that time is taken up with the public input. So again, but these are your bylaws, and we can recommend changes. We can leave them the way it is. So.
Well, I agree with Miss Emily. I think that as long as they're consistent, I'm not sure it really matters what they are, as long as it's fair and gives everyone an opportunity to speak. So.
I've been here past midnight on several occasions, so not recently though. Number 5, and it ties back to the 3-minute thing. If you receive, and I noticed when we've had written communication, one of the staff stands up at the podium and reads the written communication for the record. If you get one that's 10 pages, single space, should we limit it to 3 minutes, or should we allow a staff member to read a 10-page single-space document? Because what it's doing is it's not fair to everybody else, because they're getting more than 3 minutes, and it's going to take up a lot of time. So should a written communication be limited to 3 minutes, whatever Emily can read in 3 minutes? Or John, he reads pretty fast. Sam reads real fast.
Has that ever been an issue?
We've had a couple of long ones.
Yeah, I can think of a couple of them that have been long. I don't know if I necessarily went over the 3 minutes, that did time myself, but we've had some that have been pretty long, but it hasn't happened fairly recently.
I mean, it's a good idea.
Does it need to be written down? And like, we could simply add something to number 5 that says written communication should be of a length that could be read in 3 minutes, or 3 to 5 minutes.
Well, if you read number 5, it doesn't say anything about reading them. It says addressing the city secretary, who shall, on the request of the writer, distribute copies to commission members.
But in the past, they've read them.
We have.
They've read them. And I don't know why we do that, but they read them.
So a real easy solution is not to read them, to follow what it says here. You give us a copy before the meeting and we read it.
I'm fine with that, as long as they're
Ding, ding,
scanned
ding.
into the system and they're part of the documentation for the meeting, because we don't read everything that we're handed. So
I will say a lot of the times when we do get something like that, it's after the agenda's been posted. So we wouldn't necessarily be able to, repost the agenda packet. Most of the time, that's when we hand you a stack before the meeting starts of these are the updated responses that we've gotten.
we could make a request on the dais to have written communications added to the record.
will say, any public hearing responses that, even if we hand them to you right before the meeting, they are all included when it goes to city council as well, in the city council packet.
Yeah, and I don't like that part because I don't have time to read it during the meeting unless I don't pay attention to something else that's going on. So, you know, you've read them in the past. I don't see that there's a requirement to read them. As long as we can make a statement to add them to the record, I think that would be sufficient, and we wouldn't run into this because, you know, someone could make a very detailed 10-page statement, and that could take a good 10 minutes to read. So, just a thought.
Anyone else on number 5? Really, I don't remember that even really being a thing until COVID. And it was in there to allow, you know, give people that couldn't come to the meeting because of that whole thing to still give them a way to input. But it's a very valid point. Anyone else have anything there on written communications? All right. Go back to motion. So point of privilege is when you need an accommodation, either, you know, your microphone's not working, your chair is uncomfortable, that kind of thing, and you can interrupt for a point of privilege. A point of procedure or order is if you as a commissioner don't think we're following the right procedure, or we've made a procedural error. And again, this, you can interrupt. A second is not required. It's not debatable. But it's whatever the point is, it's resolved by the chair. There's no vote required on it, just like a point of privilege. I mean, there's other here, you know, to appeal ruling, to recess, and you can read about those. I want to kind of talk about the ones we see and typically we use in our meeting process. Some of these, I've never seen them during a meeting. But the first disposition motion there is to withdraw. And that simply means someone has made a motion and during the discussion they've changed their mind. And it is their right to withdraw that motion. They can interrupt the speaker. A second is not required. It's not debatable, and there is no vote required. It's simply you speak up and you say, you know, Mr. Chairman or Ms. Chairman or whoever, I want to withdraw my motion, and it's done. I have seen that occasionally. The next one, to postpone, that is the proper terminology when we talk about tabling an issue. We don't table it, we postpone it. That one you see, so you can't interrupt, you kind of have to wait till you have the floor. You make the motion that does require a second. It's debatable. It's amendable. And we're going to talk about this. Well, why don't we talk about it now? You see up at the top there, it says affirmative vote by 4 members. Okay. That is, I think, addressed in some of the narrative. And this is the reason why I urge the commissioners to be here if at all possible, because when we have a quorum for the Planning and Zoning Commission is 50%. That's 3.5, you round up to 4. When we only have 4 people, What you're going to find down here when we get to the main motion, and some of these others, they require 4 affirmative votes. So if one person votes nay, the motion fails. Okay?
Why is that?
Because
I'll give you an example. On number 6, where we talk about to appeal a ruling, and there's 4 commissioners present, which is a quorum. You make a ruling, and I don't like it, I can call to appeal the ruling. It says the commission, an affirmative vote of 4 commissioners is required. Well, it'll never pass, because if 3 of us vote to repeal it, and you made the motion, you'll vote not to accept our appeal. So it'll never pass. So where does this 4 come from? Why isn't it just a simple majority?
I don't know. And looking at Emily, she doesn't know. I did.
Because I'm right, correct? On number
Yes.
6, it'll never pass.
Yes, well, probably not.
You can never be overruled if 3 of us want to appeal and you don't.
That's why I tell, we need more than 4 people here. Okay?
Well, why can't we change it to simple majority?
I
And this won't happen.
I don't know why. I started to say, I tried to do a quick search of the local government code, and I read through the section about the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I saw no requirement for 4 affirmative votes. So I'm assuming that this is a local requirement that we inflicted upon ourselves. But again, maybe that's a question that we should research with our city attorney.
I would like to make that request that we do. Before I make a recommendation to change, that we raise it up the flagpole and see where this came from and what the reasoning behind it is.
Yeah, I gave you a little heads up as we get to the last item in this packet. We're going to have to, if nothing else, we're going to have to amend that one at some point in time. So it's a good time, if we have other changes we want to make. And again, as you get past the chart, it has all the narratives about what these motions mean. To refer, yeah, I've never heard that one. We have seen occasionally motions to amend a motion. And boy, you talk about going down a rabbit hole, because as you read the rules, does require a second, it's debatable, it's amendable, and it requires a vote by 4 members. But if we have a motion before us and someone makes a motion to amend that motion, we now have to deal with the amendment before we can deal with the motion. And if somebody motions to amend the amendment, we now have to deal with the amendment to the amendment before we deal with the amendment, before we deal with the... Haven't seen it very often. It's a very rare occasion. It's almost better, particularly if it's the person that made the motion that wants to amend it, it's easier just for them to withdraw the motion and make a new one. But I have never, I don't know, Richard, if you've ever seen this, to limit or close debate or call the question. That's when you folks get fed up and said enough's enough. We've talked about this long enough. And so you make the motion to close the debate. That requires a 2/3 vote, because what you're doing now is terminating someone's right to speak. So I did the math. 2/3 is 4 point something, so that rounds up to 5, if I remember right, is 2/3. And then to count the vote, what they mean, and I don't know how we would do this in today's, because it's right there. But what they mean to count the vote is you actually, it would be like the way we used to vote, where it's a voice count, or you raise your hand, or you stand up. Now that we're using this electronic system where it's right there for everybody to see who voted and how they voted, I wouldn't expect to ever see that one again.
Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, yes. So main motions, these are where we're going to take, this is where we take action. And you see there are three of them: to reconsider, to rescind, or to take action. So the last one, to take action, is typically what we do. It's when I ask for a motion to approve or deny. A second is required, it's debatable, it's amendable, and requires 4 affirmative votes unless not allowed. I don't know, I have no idea when it would not be allowed. To reconsider has to be done at the same meeting. So for instance, let's use tonight, we approved a motion to approve the consent agenda. And let's say at this point in the meeting, Commissioner Carbone says, wait a minute, we shouldn't have approved that. There's something wrong with that. Well, he can make a motion to reconsider that item on the agenda. And basically then what that does, if it's approved, we go back and we redo that particular item. Okay. To rescind an item, I've got to refer to the text here because I don't remember exactly. The motion to rescind is a main motion without any privilege, may only be made when there is nothing else before the commission, and must be made at the same meeting. And it requires a 2/3 vote of commission members. I assume what we're talking about here is we take an action and one or more of the commissioners objects to it, and so they make a motion to rescind, which would basically, I guess if it passed, it would, that's why I don't understand really why we would reconsider versus rescind, and it's kind of squishy. Never seen it though. So, but again, you guys, you folks, if you would so choose, can again, just running down, I'll tell you, again, in almost 7 years now, point of privilege comes up occasionally. I've invoked the point of procedure. I've never seen an appeal. Typically, and even city council does it, to recess, typically if we just do that with a consensus, we've been here for 2 or 3 hours and we need a break, we just as a group look at each other and say, yeah, we're going to take 5. Withdrawing a motion, that's not frequent, but I have seen that, and of course we use postpone. Again, not a lot, but sometimes as we're discussing it, we're asking questions and staff doesn't have the answer, we can postpone that to a future meeting, give them an opportunity to do some more research. Refer, again, I've never seen it used. I have seen motions amended. I've never had anybody want to close the debate, extend the debate, or even to count the vote. Typically, that's just, I say, I ask, there's no more discussion, and I call for the vote. I think we've used reconsider a couple times because I don't know if as the meeting progressed, new information became available or something. We've never rescinded one. And of course, take action is what we do all the time. All right, so the last one that surprised me is item number 17, effective abstentions. Action on required abstentions. what our current bylaws approved by city council say is there are times when you are legally obligated to abstain from a vote. And those are spelled out in Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 171. And typically, it's the action or the outcome of the item will personally affect you financially. You could be a member of the, we've had Commissioner Goldick step down a couple times because on Main Street issues as a business owner. But that requires you to physically leave the room until the action on the item is over. The other one that pops up here is when the commission member has no legal obligation to abstain from voting. And you all saw that 2 or 3 meetings ago, and typically it comes up when we vote on the consent agenda with the meeting minutes. And a member is present at that meeting, but they weren't present at the meeting that are the subject of the minutes. So they don't feel qualified, or they don't feel right voting yea or nay on those minutes because they weren't at the meeting. What our bylaws currently say is if you have no legal obligation to abstain, you can't. You either have to vote aye or nay. Now, when I mentioned that a couple meetings ago, Mr. James took exception to it, and Emily, they sent that question to the city attorney. What I expected to see here, and the way I thought it was being done, is if you have no legal obligation to abstain and you do, that is recorded as a no vote. You can say I abstain, but it goes down as a no vote. That's the legal opinion or the legal advice that Emily got from the city attorney, that's the way it should be, okay? And when you read through, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy to make that available to you, it really talks about, so if we have a full house up here, we have 7 commissioners, and someone has a legal obligation to it, so at that point, a majority is 4. But if someone has a legal obligation, and correct me if I'm misinterpreting here, but if someone has a legal obligation to abstain and they leave the room, we now have 6, not 7. So the majority is now 3. Isn't that what the attorney is saying?
Yes, sir.
And so, yes. Well, simple majority is, well, I guess it's, yeah, so I guess it would still be 4, wouldn't it? But I'm just trying to illustrate that what the attorney's opinion talks about is how you count how many people were present for that vote, okay? So I think my guidance to staff was I believe that our bylaws should reflect how we're actually doing business. So if we need to record a no legal obligation abstention as a no vote, we should change 7B to say that. Okay. And we don't need to do that tonight. At this point, I think everybody just being aware. So if you don't want it counted as a no vote, because not in the commission, I've seen it happen at city council, they have no legal obligation to abstain, but they leave the room anyway. Okay. And when the issue comes up to vote, they're not here to vote. So if they don't, they don't want to go on record voting one way or the other, so they leave. You've seen it, yeah. Okay. So anybody have any questions about that? Roger?
No, I don't have any questions about it. I'm sorry. I guess this is a question. So because we have a legal opinion on it, does it mean that it automatically gets updated into the bylaws?
So I would say if the commission as a whole would like to modify 17B, staff can work with our attorney on those amendments, and then once we have kind of a draft, we can bring that back forward to the commission for, a recommendation. So it would not automatically, we would, what I would prefer is if that's the case, that's what you would like to do, is modify 17B. We'll work the language out with the attorney, and then at an upcoming meeting, we'll bring the bylaws back forward for action, which would be a recommendation to city council to amend y'all's bylaws.
Okay, yeah. And I think that would be the prudent thing to do, especially given that, we have commissioners that aren't here tonight. They might not be aware unless it is updated.
All right.
I-
Richard, go ahead.
One comment to the members. If you haven't read Texas Local Government Codes, Chapter 171, I recommend you do. It's pretty specific on the requirements for abstentions.
And again, that's, it's not that long. It doesn't, and you can just do a Google search like I did this evening on Texas Local Government Code. And if you know the section, the chapter 171, it goes even quicker. But basically what it boils down to, unless you have a financial stake in the item, or somehow it will personally affect you, it's that kind of thing. Now, I think city council, they actually have to fill out a form, don't they?
You would as well.
Yeah.
You would have to fill out a form of why you're abstaining, how it impacts you per state law.
And we've discussed it off and on over the years. A lot of people, as you all know, I keep telling you, I was the fire marshal here for, and in fire department for 20 plus years, and I know a lot of people. And so some of these folks that bring items to planning and zoning, they're not friends, but they're personal acquaintances. Well, that's not a conflict of interest. And so it's the other one that I just happened to think about, and I saw it written somewhere. If you have to be very careful as a commissioner of who you talk to before a meeting. Basically, you're not supposed to communicate with the petitioner prior to the meeting. If you do so, you may have to disqualify yourself. So, again, if you just say hello to them, I've had it happen to me a couple times. They're just being friendly. They say hello as I'm coming in, and as long as we don't talk about the subject, about and typically I'll just, after a nice hello and a handshake, and I'll politely remind them that I can't talk to them. All right, I just need to backtrack real quick on item number 4, public hearing. Commissioner Craig asked about changing that to 5 minutes. Is that something we want to do, or are you all comfortable leaving it at 3 with the presiding officer having some, so.
Do it for the people. Just kidding.
That's why I ask. I made notes. I do try to pay attention. So.
I think, yeah, because what I already said at city council, it's the final decision. They get 3 minutes. I feel like we should offer maybe a little bit more, considering, I don't know.
And it's the reality is when you sit here and you go through public hearings and hearing of residents, and again, I don't, the light comes on, I don't turn their microphone off. But so somebody will get up there and they might go and for maybe even 5 minutes, and then the next person goes up there and they're done in 60 seconds. So in a lot of ways it balances out. Excuse me. So you're okay staying with 3?
Yeah, knowing that you don't cut them off. Yeah, totally.
And then on item number 5, Commissioner Bro brought up a time limit for reading. How do we want to handle that? Do we want to put a time limit in there, or do we just want to, allow for, well, as I think about it, when somebody comes to a meeting, they stand up there and they speak, they're recorded. It becomes part of the meeting. If somebody sends in a one-page letter or even a 10-page letter, and we strictly interpret item number 5, they would not read that. They would just give it to us to read. Well, now it's not, it may end up in the permanent record. I don't know if you keep all those written documents or not, but it's not on the visual and the audio that this person had these comments. And one of the things is that City Council will watch the video of our meeting because they want to hear the citizen input. They want to hear our comments and our questions. And so if we don't read this person's input, then they're not going to see it unless they happen to also, this, because this says city secretary. Do those come to Sheila, or do they come to you, or?
I would say the ones we've received in the past have come straight to the planning division.
Yeah, so.
And I would also say, right, keep in mind, when we're looking at written communication, do you also view that as residents that fill out the public hearing response form and write a comment at the bottom? We've not traditionally read any of those, so they're not visually on the screen during the meeting. They're in the packet, and if we receive them after the packet goes out, then they'll be in the city council packet as well. And then we do keep all of those records in city view as public hearing responses. We have, anybody that turns in any kind of response on an application goes into the file permanent record as well.
Well, what do you think about, I messed up my stuff, but item number 5, and do you think we need to put a time limit on reading them into the record?
I'm going to look to see what Lisa thinks. My personal opinion is we should not read any of them, and either they're in the packet or we hand them to you before the meeting, and that's it. They're either in the agenda packet, you get handed them before the meeting, and then they're in the city council packet, because otherwise where do you make the decision on which ones I read and which ones I don't read?
Okay, so
But I don't know if you...
they will end up, if someone sends us a written communication, that will also be in the city council packet for them
If it
to
is,
see.
if it's about a case that's being taken to city council, yes, sir, it would be sent to them as well.
And of course, we can bring it up during our discussion. We can say, well, we got this from the citizen and they don't, we want to just leave it like it is? Roderick, I know you.
Yes, that would be my recommendation. I do agree that, trying to decipher which ones you read, which ones you don't. And then what if, Miss Emily reads very, very fast, but someone else reads very slow, and I just don't think we want to go down that rabbit hole. So I would say if they're handed to us, we have the ability to read it for ourselves. We also have the ability to bring up that item if we believe that something we read needs to be addressed. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like just the abstention. Now, I know it's a budget item because they don't do it for free. But would it hurt to have Dan and his folks go through the bylaws and see if they if they see anything else in there that's in conflict?
Yeah, I would say that when we make the proposed modifications to 17, we'll send the entire thing, the entire bylaws to Dan and his team, and they'll review all of it comprehensively.
Again, that surprised me. I really thought it said that we had adopted the city council an abstention is a no vote. So I was surprised to find, but somehow this got approved and it sailed by everybody. So anyway, all right. Anybody have anything else on the bylaws? Again, when you have some time, read through them. As Commissioner Bro suggested, take a look at the local government code. If you have any questions, give me a holler or call Emily or Sam or one of the other planners and let them know. Okay?
So which ones are we reviewing? You mentioned, which one did you mention?
The only one we're actually formally going to amend is 17B, the abstention voting.
And are you going to ask
What
about the 4
The
votes?
vote, yeah.
Yes, I will ask about that as well.
Yes, we're going to look, you're right, thank you.
Clarification on why that requirement's in there. Okay.
Let's see. Well, since you brought it up, and I'm sorry, I didn't think it would, you really cared that much. But I want to make sure it's in here because it's confusing. You go back and you read the ones before. There used to be something about if a motion failed because we were at a quorum of 4 meeting, and a motion failed because it only received 4 votes, I remember seeing something somewhere about then it was automatically placed on the agenda for the next meeting. Do you remember seeing anything like that?
I don't.
Let me just look through here real quick. It might have been in our old bylaws, rather than in. I found all kinds of notes about when we were working on these, but
Is that something you would like me to run by legal as well? On if we only
well,
have
sure.
4
It wouldn't hurt.
commissioners?
It wouldn't hurt to ask. Of course, if we get away from I thought it might be an LGC requirement, but again, the particular sections I look at, I did not see anything, but I don't see that other thing in our current bylaws. So that must have been in the old ones or something. So, but that might be another question to ask them. I know it's a little bit different, but what did City Council do? Or does that ordinance affect us too? And it had to do with if something is disapproved by less than the full council, it can be brought back again. You remember, didn't they make that change? In other words, if they're down to minimums, and maybe that's.
For some reason, I feel like it's only for BOA. Like
Maybe
that's what I
it
remember,
was.
that we ran into that
Yes,
problem and it was.
You're right, it was Board of Adjustment. But maybe that's appropriate here too. And just to let you know what happened, well, I think it was 2 items at the same meeting. They only had 4 members. And 2 issues failed because they only got 3 affirmative votes. And after that, the procedure was changed that if that happens, then it can come back. Because right now they have to wait a certain, 6 months or something. If BOA or somebody says no, for instance, if council turns down a zoning action, they have to wait a period.
6 months or change the request.
Yeah, so council kind of waived that, I guess, for BOA, and maybe that's something we should consider for ourselves, to give everybody a fair shot. But, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, then, why would you even vote on it?
Well, because you may get the 4 affirmative votes, and then it moves on, saying.
I feel like what I've seen in the past, especially on like a zoning case, if there's only 4 commissioners, typically the applicant is asking to postpone the item to the next meeting so there's more commissioners present. That's what I've That's what I've seen in the past, is the applicant will request for it to be postponed to get a larger number of commissioners.
Yeah, the other thing, and when you only have 4 members here, is someone will make a motion, and you vote on the motion, and it only gets 3 votes, 1 opposed, so it fails. And we had this happen 3 or 4 meetings ago. Now, we had more than 4, but the motion failed because it didn't, people voted against it. Well, then what you need is for whoever voted against it to make a new motion. And typically, when you have a group like us, let's say it's 4-2. Now, let's just say I make a motion, but you guys don't like it, so it's 2-4, 4 against, the motion fails. Well, then someone that voted against it will make the motion to approve it. Well, you would expect the vote to be 4 in favor and 2 against, but now it's passed. See? Well, when you only have 4 members, you can't do that, because assuming whoever voted nay is going to, it's confusing, isn't it? But no.
I don't know if it's as much confusing as it is that you would just not have the vote. You would push it to the next meeting if you only have 4.
Well, and that's what Emily is saying. In times past, although I haven't seen that. I don't know that I can. Yes, there was one somewhere last year where it was 3-1, and then so it failed, and so somebody changed the motion, and then it was still 3-1. And I don't remember the resolution. I think it still went to, see, in most cases, this happens on something like a zoning request. And I think it still went to it still goes to city council. Yeah, I woke Lisa up, yeah.
I was just wondering if I could give you a couple examples. So my thought is even if there were 4 and you, as a commission, disapproved it, council does still have the ability to approve or deny it because you're making a recommendation to them. But there is an appeal process in the EDC, so if you had 4 members and you kind of kept going back and forth and the commission came up and the plat didn't pass, the applicant has the ability to appeal that to city council. It can get on agenda fairly quickly, and it can either be approved or denied. We've had that happen a few times. Not a whole lot, but a few times.
Just make sure you come to the meetings. So anyway, so we were discussing, well, Emily asked that question, but number one, where did the 4 affirmative votes come from? Can we change that to just a simple majority? And that would be what? If you only have 4, then it would be 2, right? Or 3, I'm sorry, yeah. Because it has to be 51%. And that might solve if we do away with the 4 affirmative votes, that might solve the issue. Again, it's something that, I can't remember a whole lot of minimum quorum meetings that just, typically, I guess we almost had one last month, but that was just because some of us dummies, that's why we started late. Okay. All right. Anybody else? You got enough to do now?
So I will say this might be on the December meeting, just so we have enough time to work with legal to get everything worked out with APA conference. The next meeting comes quick.
Yeah, I think that's okay. It's just, I don't know that it's a high priority. We'll just have to, and actually the abstention thing is more about how Tiffany records the vote than it is anything else, okay? All right, item number 7, request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. Anybody have anything? Announcements by commissioners? Do we have a meeting before the APA conference? We do not. Okay, so nobody has anything? All right, Sam?
Just a couple announcements here. We have 2 site plans that have been approved. First one is approximately 1,600 square foot addition to the Good Shepherd Catholic Church food pantry. It's for an expansion of that. And the second one is the National Republic distributing parking lot, which is approximately a half acre. And this site plan was approved to add 50 spaces. That's all I got.
All right. Item number 8 is the information that's available in your commission packets with our current project and where they stand with City Council. And it is now 7:15 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. November